The first time I saw Ethan Caldwell, my heart stopped, but not in the way you'd think. It was fear, not love, that froze me. Fear of the truth I'd buried so deep it felt like a stranger's secret. I was 16, standing in our cramped kitchen in suburban Ohio, watching my brother's best friend laugh like he owned the world, his blue eyes catching the light like they were made of it. I'm Lucas Harper, the quiet kid who always had a sketchbook in hand, the one who faded into the background while my older brother, Jake, and his friends filled our house with noise. Ethan was the sun in their orbit, tall, broad-shouldered, with a smile that could charm anyone. He was 18, a senior, the kind of guy who made varsity football and still aced calculus. Everyone loved him. Everyone except me, because I didn't trust myself around him. Not then. That summer, the air was thick with cicada song and secrets. Jake and Ethan were inseparable, always sprawled across our couch, planning their futures at Ohio State. I'd linger nearby, pretending to draw, stealing glances at Ethan's easy grin, the way his hands moved when he talked. I told myself it was nothing, just admiration. But deep down, I knew better. I'd known since middle school, when I'd catch myself staring too long at boys in the locker room, my chest tightening with a truth I wasn't ready to face. One night, everything changed. Jake had a late shift at the diner, leaving Ethan behind at our house. It was July, the kind of humid night that made your skin stick to everything. Ethan was sprawled on the couch, flipping through channels, his white t-shirt clinging to his frame. I was in the armchair, sketching a tree from memory, trying not to notice him. But then he looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "You're always so quiet, Lucas. What's going on in that head of yours?" I froze. My pencil hovered over the page, my pulse hammering. "Nothing," I mumbled, but my voice cracked, betraying me. Ethan sat up, his gaze steady, like he could see right through my lie. "Come on," he said, softer now. "You don't have to hide from me." I wanted a bolt to lock myself in my room and never come out. But something in his voice, gentle, almost pleading, kept me there. He stood, crossed the room, and sat on the arm of my chair, too close. His knee brushed mine, and I swear the air sparked. "Your sketches," he said, nodding at my open book. "They're incredible. You ever show anyone?" I shook my head, my throat tight. No one saw my sketches, not even Jake. They were my safe place, where I could pour out everything I couldn't say. Ethan reached for the book, his fingers grazing mine as he took it. He flipped through the pages, his expression unreadable. There were drawings of the lake behind our house, of Jake laughing, of hands, too many hands I realized too late, that looked suspiciously like his. "These are personal," he said, not a question. I nodded, my face burning. He closed the book and handed it back, his eyes locking onto mine. "You've got a lot to say, don't you?" I didn't answer. I couldn't, because if I opened my mouth, I was terrified of what might spill out. Ethan leaned closer, his voice low. "You don't have to be scared, Lucas. Not with me." That was the moment I knew I was in trouble. Not because of what he said, but because of how it made me feel, like I was standing on the edge of a cliff and part of me wanted to jump. The rest of the night passed in a blur. Ethan didn't push, didn't ask more questions. He just stayed, talking about nothing and everything, his favorite bands, the time he and Jake got caught sneaking beers, how he wasn't sure he wanted to follow his dad's plan for him to study law. I listened, hanging on every word, my fear giving way to something warmer, something dangerous. When he finally left, I lay awake, replaying every moment, every glance. I told myself it was nothing, but my heart knew better. The next week, Ethan was at our house constantly. Jake didn't notice the way Ethan's eyes lingered on me, or how he'd find excuses to sit closer, to brush past me in the hallway. I noticed, though, every touch, every look was a spark, and I was running out of ways to smother the fire. One evening, after Jake crashed early, Ethan suggested we go for a walk. It was reckless, stupid even, but I followed him out into the night. We ended up in our backyard, under the old oak tree, the moon casting shadows across his face. He sat on the bench, patting the spot beside him. I hesitated, then sat, my heart pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it. "Why do you always look like you're about to run?" he asked, his voice soft but piercing. "I don't," I lied, staring at the grass. "You do," he said, "and I think I know why." My breath caught. He couldn't know. No one could. But then he reached out, his hand resting on mine, warm and steady. "Lucas," he said, and the way he said my name felt like a confession. "It's okay." I pulled my hand away, panic rising. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" His voice was calm, but there was a challenge in it. He leaned closer, his face inches from mine. "I see you, Lucas. I've always seen you." I wanted to deny it, to push him away, to run back to the safety of my room. But I was tired of hiding, tired of pretending I was someone I wasn't. So I stayed, frozen, as he closed the distance between us. His lips brushed mine, tentative at first, then sure, and the world fell away. It was just us, under the oak tree, the cicadas singing, the night holding its breath. When we pulled apart, I was trembling, not from fear, but from something else, something alive and electric. Ethan smiled, a small, private thing, and whispered, "I've wanted to do that for a long time." I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. My mind was a storm of fear and hope, guilt and want. Ethan was my brother's best friend, the golden boy everyone loved. And I was just Lucas, the kid who didn't fit in anywhere. What we'd done, what we'd started, felt like a betrayal, not just of Jake, but of everything I'd been taught to believe about myself. But as I lay there, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't stop thinking about the way Ethan's hand fell in mine, the way his kiss had unraveled me. For the first time, I let myself imagine a world where I didn't have to hide. And that thought, fragile as it was, kept me awake until dawn. I tried to act normal, to keep my sketches and my secrets locked away, but Ethan made it impossible. He'd linger after Jake went to bed, finding excuses to talk to me, about art, about music, about the stars we could see from our backyard. Each conversation pulled me deeper, and I hated how much I loved it. I was 19 now, a freshman at the local community college, still living at home, still hiding. Ethan was at Ohio State, home for the summer, and every moment with him felt stolen, precious, dangerous. One night, Jake invited a bunch of friends over for a bonfire. The backyard was alive with music and laughter, the fire casting flickering shadows across faces I'd known since childhood. I stayed on the fringes, nursing a soda, watching Ethan joke with the others. He was effortless, magnetic, but every so often his eyes found mine, and the world shrank to just us. "Lucas, you gonna join us, or just lurk?" Jay called, grinning. I forced a smile, waving him off, but Ethan broke away from the group and walked over, his hands shoved in his pockets. "You're too quiet tonight," he said, his voice low enough that only I could hear. "Everything okay?" I nodded, but my stomach twisted. The truth was I was terrified. Terrified of what we were doing, of what it meant, of what would happen if anyone found out. Ethan's hand brushed mine, hidden by the darkness, and he whispered, "Meet me later, by the oak tree." I shouldn't have gone. I knew it. But when the fire died down and everyone stumbled inside, I slipped out to the backyard. Ethan was already there, leaning against the tree, his face half lit by moonlight. He didn't say anything, just pulled me into his arms, and I let him. His kiss was fiercer this time, desperate, like he was afraid I'd slip away. I kissed him back, my hands gripping his shirt, my heart racing with a mix of fear and need. "We can't keep doing this," I whispered when we broke apart, my voice shaking. "Why not?" Ethan's eyes searched mine, steady and unafraid. "Because of Jake? Or because you're scared?" "Both," I admitted. "If he finds out, if anyone finds out." "They won't," Ethan said, his voice firm. "Not until we're ready. But Lucas, I'm not going anywhere. I've known how I felt about you since last summer. Maybe longer." His words hit me like a punch. He'd known. All those glances, those moments I thought I'd imagined. He'd felt it too. But instead of relief, I felt panic. You don't get it, I said, stepping back. This isn't just about us. Jake's your best friend. My parents, they're not exactly open-minded. And this town, they'd eat us alive. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. He just looked at me, his expression soft but resolute. I'm not asking you to tell the world. I'm just asking you to let me in. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But every time I thought about it, I saw Jake's face, my parents' disappointment, the whispers that would follow us. I shook my head, backing away. I can't. I left him there, under the oak tree, and went back to my room, my chest aching. For the next few days, I avoided him. I stayed in my room, buried in my sketches, trying to drown out the memory of his lips, his voice. But Ethan wasn't so easy to shake. He kept showing up, not pushing, just there. He'd sit with Jake, but his eyes would find me, patient, waiting. One afternoon, Jake was out, and Ethan knocked on my bedroom door. I didn't want to let him in, but I did. He stood in the middle of my room, looking at the sketches pinned to my walls. Landscapes, portraits, hands that were unmistakably his. You're really good, Lucas, he said, his voice quiet. But you're hiding more than your art. I swallowed hard. You don't know what it's like, I said. To feel like you're wrong, like you're broken, just for being who you are. You're not broken, Ethan said, stepping closer. And you're not wrong. You're just you. And he stopped, his voice catching. I'm falling for you, Lucas. I can't help it. My breath hitched. I want to tell him I felt the same, that every moment with him made me feel alive in a way I'd never known. But the words stuck in my throat, choked by fear. You should go, I said instead, my voice barely a whisper. Ethan didn't argue. He just nodded, his eyes full of something I couldn't name. Hurt, maybe, or hope. I'll wait, he said, as long as it takes. When he left, I sank onto my bed, my sketchbook open to a half-finished drawing of his face. I wanted to believe him, to believe we could have something real. But the weight of my fear was crushing, and I didn't know how to escape it. Summer bled into fall, and Ethan went back to Ohio State. The distance should have made things easier, but it didn't. Every text he sent, every late-night call, was a reminder of what I was running from. I'd read his messages. Simple things like saw a sketchbook in a shop and thought of you, or miss your face, and my heart would ache with a longing I couldn't shake. I'd reply, keeping it light, friendly, safe, but every word I typed felt like a lie. Jake noticed something was off. You're quieter than usual, he said one night over dinner, his brow furrowed. You okay, man? I nodded, forcing a smile, but guilt gnawed at me. Jake was my big brother, my protector, the one who'd taught me how to ride a bike, how to throw a punch. He didn't deserve my secrets, but I didn't know how to tell him the truth without breaking everything. By October, I was drowning. My classes at community college were a blur, my sketches darker, heavier. I drew Ethan constantly, his eyes, his hands, the curve of his smile, trying to capture the way he made me feel. But every stroke of my pencil was a reminder of what I couldn't have. I started avoiding his calls, letting his texts go unanswered. It was easier to push him away than to face what I was feeling. Then, one weekend, Ethan showed up unannounced. I was in the garage, sorting through old art supplies when I heard his voice. You're a hard guy to reach, Harper. I turned, and there he was, leaning against the doorframe, his jacket dusted with early snow. My heart stuttered, but I kept my face neutral. What are you doing here? I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. Jake invited me for the weekend, he said, but his eyes said something else. Thought maybe you'd want to talk. There's nothing to talk about, I said, turning back to the box of pencils, my hands shaking. Bullshit, Ethan said, stepping closer. You're shutting me out, Lucas. Why? I wanted to scream, to tell him it wasn't about him, that it was me, my fear, my shame, the weight of a town that would never understand. But instead, I said, you're Jake's friend. That's it. Ethan flinched, but he didn't back down. You know that's not true, he said, his voice low. What happened between us? That wasn't nothing. I know you felt it too. I shook my head, my throat tight. You don't get it. This can't work. Not here. Not with me. Why not? He pressed, his voice rising. Because you're scared? Because you think Jake won't understand? Or because you don't think you deserve this? His words cut deep, slicing through the walls I'd built. I turned away, my eyes burning. Just leave it, Ethan. He didn't. He grabbed my arm, gentle but firm, and turned me to face him. I'm not giving up on you, he said. Not until you tell me you don't feel anything. Look me in the eye and say it. I couldn't. My vision blurred, and I yanked my arm free, stumbling out of the garage into the cold. Ethan followed, his footsteps crunching in the snow. We ended up by the oak tree again, the place that held too many memories. I stopped, my breath visible in the air, and finally let the truth spill out. I'm scared, okay? I said, my voice breaking. I'm scared of what this means, of what happens if anyone finds out. Jake, my parents, this whole damn town, they'll hate me. And you're too good for this, Ethan. You deserve someone who isn't afraid to be seen with you. Ethan stepped closer, his hands cupping my face, his thumbs brushing away the tears I hadn't realized were falling. I don't want someone else, he said. I want you. And I'm scared too, Lucas. But I'd rather face that fear with you than lose you. I broke thin, the weight of his words shattering something inside me. I kissed him, hard and desperate, the cold forgotten, the world forgotten. It was reckless, stupid, but it was real. When we pulled apart, I was shaking, but for the first time, it wasn't just fear. It was hope. We'll figure this out, Ethan whispered, his forehead pressed against mine. Together. But the world wasn't done with us. That night, Jake walked into the backyard just as Ethan and I were sitting on the bench, too close, our hands tangled together. He froze, his face a mix of confusion and betrayal. What the hell is this? He demanded, his voice sharp. My heart stopped. Ethan squeezed my hand, but I pulled away, panic flooding me. Jake, it's not. Don't lie to me. Jake snapped, his eyes darting between us. Ethan, you're my best friend. And Lucas, my brother? What the fuck is going on? I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Ethan stood, his voice steady. Jake, I care about him. A lot. We didn't mean for you to find out like this. Jake's face twisted, and for a moment, I thought he'd swing at Ethan. But he just shook his head, his voice low. You should have told me. Both of you. He turned and walked back to the house, the door slamming behind him. I sank onto the bench, my head in my hands. Ethan sat beside me, silent, his hand resting on my back. He'll come around, he said, but I could hear the doubt in his voice. I wanted to believe him, but as I looked at the house, at the life I'd always known, I wasn't so sure. The fallout with Jake was worse than I'd imagined. For days, he barely spoke to me, his silences heavier than any argument. He'd leave the room when I entered, his jaw tight, his eyes avoiding mine. Mom and Dad noticed the tension, but chalked it up to brother stuff. I let them believe it. The truth was too big, too fragile to share. Ethan tried to bridge the gap. He'd text Jake, call him, even show up at the house, but Jake wasn't ready. I just need time. He told Ethan one night, his voice clipped. You don't get to blindside me like this and expect me to be okay. Ethan didn't push, but I could see the toll it took on him. The way his shoulders slumped, the way his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. I felt like I was splitting in two. Part of me wanted to run to Ethan, to lose myself in the warmth of his arms, to believe we could build something real. The other part was drowning in guilt, terrified of what I'd cost Jake, what I'd cost myself. I stopped sketching, stopped going to class. I'd sit in my room, staring at the walls, replaying that moment under the oak tree, wondering if I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I drove to Ethan's dorm, 2 hours away, my hand shaking on the wheel. When he opened the door, his face lit up, but worry quickly replaced it. Lucas, what's wrong? I didn't answer, just stepped inside and kissed him. It was messy, desperate, like I was trying to pour all my fear and longing into him. He kissed me back, his hands steadying me, grounding me. When we finally pulled apart, I was crying, and he didn't let go. I'm ruining everything, I whispered. Jake hates me. My parents, they'll never understand. And you're stuck with me, this mess who can't even be honest with himself. Ethan pulled me onto the couch, his arms around me. "You're not a mess," he said. "You're just figuring it out. And Jake, he's hurt, but he loves you. He'll come around. As for your parents," he paused, his voice softening. "We'll face them together when you're ready." I wanted to believe him, but the fear was still there, sharp and cold. "What if I'm never ready?" I asked. "Then we wait," he said simply. "I'm not going anywhere." That night, I stayed with him. We didn't do anything more than talk and hold each other, but it was enough. For the first time, I felt like I could breathe, like maybe I wasn't alone in this. When I drove home the next morning, I felt lighter, but the weight of Jake's silence was still there. A week later, Jake finally spoke to me. It was late, the house quiet, and I was in the kitchen, making coffee to stay awake for a paper I hadn't started. He walked in, grabbed a mug, and stood there, staring at the counter. "I don't get it," he said finally. "You and Ethan. How long?" I swallowed hard. "Since the summer. But it's new, and I didn't know how to tell you." He nodded, his jaw tight. "You should have trusted me, Lucas. I'm your brother." "I know," I said, my voice breaking. I was scared. I'm still scared. He looked at me, then really looked at me, and I saw something shift in his eyes, anger giving way to something softer. "I don't hate you," he said. "I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. Ethan's my best friend, and you're my little brother. It's a lot." I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," he said, his voice gruff. "Just don't lie to me again, okay?" I promised, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. Jake wasn't okay, not yet, but he was trying, and that was enough for now. Ethan and I kept seeing each other, stealing moments when we could. Late-night drives, quiet walks by the lake, moments where the world felt small and safe. But the fear never left me completely. I knew we couldn't stay hidden forever, not in a town like ours, where whispers spread faster than wildfire. By December, rumors started. Someone had seen us together, too close, too often. A neighbor mentioned it to my mom, who brushed it off, but I saw the way her eyes lingered on me, questioning. Dad started asking why Ethan was around so much, his tone sharp. I lied, deflected, but the walls were closing in. One night, Ethan and I were in his car, parked by the lake, when he turned to me, his face serious. "We need to talk about what's next," he said. "I'm graduating in the spring. I want you with me, Lucas. Wherever I go." My heart leapt, then sank. "What about Jake? My family? This town? We'll figure out," he said, his hand finding mine. "But I need to know you're in this. Really in this." I looked at him, at the boy who'd seen me when I couldn't see myself, and I nodded. "I'm in." But as we drove back, the weight of his words settled over me. Being with Ethan meant facing the world, my parents, my town, myself, and I wasn't sure I was ready. Winter came hard, blanketing Ohio in snow and silence. Ethan and I clung to each other, our moments stolen in the quiet of his car or the shadows of my backyard. But the rumors grew louder, sharper, like knives waiting to cut. By January, I couldn't ignore them anymore. People stared when I walked through town, their whispers trailing me like ghosts. My parents' questions grew pointed, their patience thin. I knew the truth was coming, whether I was ready or not. One evening, Mom cornered me in the kitchen. "Lucas, what's going on with you and Ethan?" she asked, her voice tight. "People are talking, and I need to know the truth." I froze, my heart pounding. I wanted to lie, to say it was nothing, but I was tired of hiding. "I love him," I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. "I'm in love with Ethan." The silence that followed was deafening. Mom's face went pale, her hands gripping the counter. "You don't mean that," she said, her voice trembling. "You're confused. You're young." "I'm not confused," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "This is who I am." She shook her head, tears in her eyes. "Your father won't understand. This family, we don't do this." I wanted to argue, to beg her to see me, but Dad walked in, his face hard. "What's going on?" he demanded. Mom told him, her voice breaking, and I watched his expression shift from confusion to anger. "You're throwing your life away," he said, his voice low and cold. "For what?" Some phase? You think this town will accept you? You think we will? I stood there, my chest tight, my world crumbling. I'm not asking you to accept it, I said. I'm just asking you to love me. Dad turned away, and Mom just cried. I left the kitchen, my vision blurred, and found Ethan waiting outside. He'd heard everything, his face pale but resolute. I'm here, he said, pulling me into his arms. No matter what. That night, I packed a bag and left. Ethan drove us to his dorm, and for the first time, I didn't look back. It hurt, God, it hurt, but it was also freedom. I wasn't hiding anymore. Jake came around, slowly. He showed up at Ethan's dorm a week later, his expression guarded but softer. I don't get it, he said, but you're my brother. And Ethan, he's still my friend. I don't want to lose either of you. We talked for hours, and by the end, Jake hugged me, his grip tight. Just be happy, okay? He said. That's all I want. My parents took longer. Months of silence, then tentative calls, awkward conversations. That they didn't understand, not fully, but they were trying, and that was enough for now. Ethan graduated in May, and we moved to Columbus together, a small apartment with too many windows and not enough space. It wasn't perfect. There were fights, fears, moments when the world felt too big. But every night, I'd fall asleep with Ethan's arms around me, his heartbeat steady against mine, and I knew we'd made it through the worst. One evening, under the same oak tree where it all began, Ethan got down on one knee. There was no ring, no grand gesture, just him, his eyes bright with love. "Marry me, Lucas," he said. "Not today, not tomorrow, but when you're ready. I want forever with you." I said yes, my voice breaking, my heart full. We kissed under the moonlight, the cicadas singing, and I felt it, the truth I'd spent so long running from. Love wasn't a secret to hide or a sin to confess. It was us, messy and real, fighting for each other against the odds. Years later, I'd look back on that night, on the boy who was too scared to speak, on the love that changed everything, and I'd smile. Because Ethan didn't just stay the night. He stayed for me, for us, and what he did still makes my heart tremble, not with fear, but with gratitude for a life I never dared to dream.